the subject of self-examination, and the theme has been intra, and transpersonal relationship examination. In other words, we are examining the relationship with ourselves, the relationship with others, and the relationship with God. But today's title is, does who you are align with what God says you are? Does who you are align with what God says you are? Remember what we've been looking at. Asking three questions. The first question, who do people say you are? Which we looked at last week. Have we ever analyzed and looked at what people say we are? You may be thinking that you are a very committed, maybe generous person. Well, line up with what God says you are. So that's what we are looking at. And the scripture is we are looking at is 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. To examine yourself to see whether you are in the faith. That's what we are looking at. Yeah, so that's what we are looking at. So the questions, who do you say you are? We dealt with last week. Who do you say you are? No. Who do you say you are? We are dealing with it today. Last week, we are looking at what other people say you are. This time, we are looking at what you think you are, yourself. And then we'll use the Johari window, which I talked about last week, to see how we can examine ourselves and also how others can examine us. So it's about you. It's not about another person. This examination is not about another person. It's about you and it's about myself getting examined. And then we'll look at what does God say you are? What does God say you are? So who do you say you are is our first question. Who do you say you are? When you are moving about, when you are talking to yourself, you are alone, you are not watching anything, you are meditating, what thoughts run through your mind? Who are you? Who are you? That's the big question that we need to ask. So we are going to look at an assessment, God's assessment and your own assessment, and see how this aligns or contrasts. So we normally assess ourselves from a fallen nature. What I mean by assessing ourselves from a fallen nature is that we don't assess ourselves as the Bible says we should assess ourselves. Because we fell short of the glory of God. A man sinned against God, and his image of himself or herself has actually been distorted. The image of man has been distorted. So we are either underestimating or overestimating ourselves, which results in superiority complex or inferiority complex. In other words, instead of accurately assessing ourselves, we are either feeling inferior, where we feel low, or we feel superior over others. So overestimating, underestimating ourselves. We tend to rate ourselves on the basis of what we have, or what we do not have, or what we have achieved, or what we have not achieved. And in fact, years back when I was a student in the university as an undergraduate, a young person, there was a class, a topic in psychology. We were doing social sciences. I think it must have been fundamentals of social sciences. And in this course, we are talking about self-perception, how we assess ourselves. And the lecturer said, according to a particular theory, he said that we assess ourselves especially based on the type of job you do. So if you have a very high job, you feel very good and very, very superior. But if you have a low-ranking job, you feel very low. And that is human perception. So we want to assess ourselves. We want to measure our importance based on what we have achieved and what we have done, how educated we are. Sometimes we want to measure ourselves based on the family we come from. You know, some people, when they just mention their name, the family name, you even know who they are. You even begin to give respect. And people measure themselves by that. And this is the reason why we've had problems in the past with, let's say, children of presidents, children of ministers, because all of a sudden, they begin to measure themselves based on their father's position, political position. That is the challenge. It becomes in that regard. So, now the issue here is that one thing that I learned a little early in my early 30s is not to underestimate myself. I have worked predominantly, or let me say, I've worked a lot with Westerners, particularly light-skinned people. And very early, I realized, I assessed myself and I said, I looked at my boss. I had an Irish boss some years back in Kasama. I looked at myself and I said, this man, I looked at what he knew and what he was able to do. Then I made a conclusion. I said, this man is able to do what he's able to do because he has gone through a particular process. If I also went through the same process, I'll be as good as him. So there's nothing special about that person. But what I'm saying is that the reason we should not measure, or let me put this, we should not feel inferior because we are with somebody who is maybe more educated. Even the person who is more educated, no matter how many degrees you have, you only know very small aspect of life. Very small. Educated, the car breaks down, you need a mechanic who is not as educated as you are. Some people can't even change the light bulb, you know. So we shouldn't use human standards. That's why you see some people, when they have money, they even begin to look down on others. Why? It's a fallen nature. Some people, they look at the work they do, the position they hold, they look down on themselves. Remember I mentioned last week when we were talking about how you dress, that if you overdress, you can threaten others. I mentioned that people who are from low-income backgrounds, when they see a very posh place, maybe a bank, they don't want to go in. That is research, it's been proven. And that's why now we have community banking, a place that is not so posh, so that we all can feel comfortable to go there. So it's very important to understand that we are not more important than another person because you are more educated, because you have a high job, because you come from a particular family. Neither are you less valuable or less important than any other person. We may have, let's say we have a chief executive in here running a company. You find some people may not even approach, especially when they know who he is or who she is, they may not even want to approach that person. He is a brother in the Lord. That's what brings us together. So don't just stand up and say, no. So that is the challenge that we have. Now, let's look at how God assesses us. The Bible advises us to have a realistic assessment of ourselves. We are cautioned not to overrate or underrate ourselves. We should not overrate or underrate ourselves. And we should also not rate ourselves in relation to others. We should not relate ourselves in relation to others. Romans 12 verse 3 says, "For I say through the grace given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, as God has dealt each one a measure of faith." First warning, let's not overrate or underrate ourselves. Let's have a fair assessment of ourselves. A fair assessment of ourselves. Your value is not based on what you have done or do not have. but you are created in the image of God. That's where your value is. Your value is that you are created in the image of God. That is the most important. You may be as dark as me, but you are still as important as anyone else. Who says light-skinned people are more beautiful than us who are dark-skinned? God is a God of variety. He created some Indians, others Chinese, Africans with big noses, so that we can breathe the oxygen of Africa, nicely. Others tall, others short, men, women. He's a God of variety. It's as a result of the fall of man that we have racism, tribalism, sexism, ageism, and whatever ism there is. Here's another scripture for Galatians 6:3. For if anyone thinks himself to be something when he's not, when he's nothing, he deceives himself or herself. Proverbs 21 verse 2 says, every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs their hearts. 2 Corinthians 10:12 says, for we dare not class ourselves and compare ourselves with those who commend themselves, but they measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves are not wise. This issue of comparing with some people, this issue of looking at what somebody has and what you don't have is not a right way. It's a poor assessment of yourself. In most cases, we assess ourselves based on, we normally look up. By looking up is that we are looking at those we think have what we don't have. And that's what makes many people to feel inferior. You buy a car, you feel very nice. Then somebody comes and parks a better car, more expensive than your car next to you, you feel inferior. Actually, inferiority and superiority are the same, they are just the same, the different sides of the coin. A person who is inferior is also superior, has a superiority complex. So is a person who has an inferiority complex or superiority complex. Because when you feel a superiority complex, it means you've met somebody who has less than you have. The next time you are going to find somebody who has more than you have, you feel inferior. I always get amazed how these guys, particularly men, a lot of foolishness comes from us men. This guy comes with a car, very nice car, Porsche car, maybe sports car, and then he's showing off with the keys so that tomorrow morning. Now, I ask myself, I remember one time asking myself and says, now, what has your car, in my heart, of course, intrapersonal, what has your car got to do with me? It is your car. I mean, what has that got to do with me? Whether you drive a Porsche car, a nice car, whether you live in a particular neighborhood, does that change my status? No, it's when you're also foolish enough that you begin to compare and even feel inferior over somebody's car. A person's status does not change my status. And why should I worry about another person's status when I have my own status? And I know that the Lord will bless me at the right time with whatever I'm looking for. You may be surprised that you're admiring somebody who is even admiring you. Let's look at the Johari window. The model for self and other people's assessment or examination. I mentioned last week that Johari window is a technique designed to help people better understand their relationship with themselves and others. It was created by two psychologists, Joseph Luft. He lived between 1916 and 2014. He just missed 2 years to reach 100, this person. Harrington Egma, and in fact the Johari, actually, if I recall, the word Johari comes from their names. Joe from Joseph, Harry from the first 2 letters there. So Johari window actually comes from their names. I remember when we were looking at this some years back. It was primarily are used in self-help groups and corporate settings as a problem-solving exercise. So it's for people within groups, as individuals, within groups or corporate setting at workplaces, they use it to assess their relationships with each other and themselves. Now here is the Johari window. So you have here, okay, so you have, it's a quadrant also like the image character quadrant. You have this, which is called, first you have known by self, and known by self. Then you have known by others and known by others. So this is self, the top part is self, the bottom part is others. Okay? Now, so we have, so this, if you are in one, it means this is the part which is called open or free area. You are known, that is the part where you are known by self and also known by others. This is information that you know about me. I'll use myself an example. You know about me, but also I know about myself. That's why it is an open area. Let's say nganda fulwa bonse mwaishi bati, baba pastor bala fulwa, baba pastor bala zanda, baba pastor tabelela, mwaishi bonse. Ninji shiba na inemu ina tefo nava, na imena mwishiwa tefo mwava. So you know that you are like that. I also know that I'm that. Then, which area, where should we go? Okay, let's continue with self. This one. Let me come down here. Here, number 3, this is unknown by others, but known by self. This is hidden. This is a hidden area. This hidden area, it means there are certain things that only me knows. The rest of you don't know. Maybe even my wife doesn't know. This is the hidden area. Okay? Then we have this area, which is a blind area. I think this is a very dangerous area. It's a very dangerous area. Because this area, it's unknown by self, but known by others. People know who you are, but you don't know yourself. The other way, the nickname for this area is called bad breath. You know when you have a bad breath? When you have bad breath, only others know that you have bad breath. And our culture, we don't, it's offensive to tell somebody that mulenu nkamukanwa. Techa kwesha kufuira fya mukati. Iwe ni wa fuira mukati. You know? Sometimes those who are close to you bakubati mule sheta ku bubblegum nishi bakweva ati ulenu nkamukano. This is bad breath. It's a blind area. And all of us, this is the part I was saying, what do others say about you? What do others say you are? You may think of yourself as a very kind, very spiritual person, very patient, but people think otherwise. They think otherwise. Then, this area, this is called an unknown area. Unknown area. Unknown to self and unknown by others. So, now how this exercise is done is that people provide information about you. They provide information about you. Then you also provide information. Okay, they provide information. So first they tell you this side. That some information, as they provide you that information, who you are, if you know about that, then that is also in an open area. I think in future, to know each other, one day, we'll just say, we are going to do Johari window. I think maybe in the groups, the men alone, the women, I don't know. But anyway, especially the leaders definitely will do that sometime in future. So they will tell you the information, then you tell them, I didn't know about that, then it comes here. I didn't know about that, it comes here. Don't know about that, that was the blind area. Then here is called self-disclosure. You tell them something that people don't know about you. No, self-disclosure is here. This one is feedback solicitation. You solicit feedback. Here you tell people. Then here, what happens here is that it's called shared discovery. The others begin to observe you, and you are also discovering yourself and knowing who you are, a bit by bit. So this is the model that can be used to actually assess yourself and also assess others. Others assessing you. It will take a long time for all of us to go around each person. We take this one to Amchita assess, then we go through this process. It's a long, long process. Yeah, the other things, you just, you read them. I've already explained in the interest of time. When I send this script, you'll be able to just read through. So the question is, what is the importance of human examination by self and others? And I'll again go quickly here. I want us to get to where God is assessing us. So self-reflection, when we inquire about what we or others think of us, it prompts introspection. Introspection means looking at yourself. We evaluate our behavior, choices, and values in light of external perception, leading to increased self-awareness. If people told us more of who we are, we will know more about ourselves. We may think we are perfect, but not knowing that what people think of us is actually the opposite. When my household was in full force, all the 4 children were around. I think we did it 2 years. We would sit and let everyone go around, say something about each member of the family. It was a very risky thing I did. Because there the children are telling him, my dad, mwaba so and so, my mommy, mwaba so. I actually recorded that the last session, only that I don't know where it is. The whole session. So we are giving feedback of each other. Understanding perspective. Different people may perceive us in various ways based on their experiences and interactions with us. This may be totally different from what we think of ourselves. By seeking to know what others say about us and others, we gain more comprehensive understanding of who we are or how we are seen. Remember, there are certain things that people know about you that you don't know about yourself. And only those people who know you can tell you. And the people that actually first and foremost who should tell us are our spouses. That is if we have ears to hear. Because each one of us knows something positive about our spouses, but you don't want to tell them. Because marriage is also very political. Eh? You don't want to go into certain areas, so sometimes because he knows and she knows who you are and how bad and terrible you are. That part, he doesn't want to tell you. But I think women are better off than us men. I hope I'm not using my wife as a sample. That is very easy to receive feedback because women don't have an ego. Us men who have something within us called an ego. It's called the ego. Yeah, anyway, so that is the challenge that we have. So when we know how others think of us, we can be able to adapt our communication. I can give you one example. My mentor with public communication is my wife, and yet she can't stand here to preach. Why? Even no matter how much I got upset, she still kept on giving me feedback. On radio, she's the one who was, mwachilanda fast. Lelo mwachilanda bueno. Mwachiwako slow, mwachiwa calm. That was better. Mwachiwa too fast. Mula minama words. Mula put kishama sentences. Feedback. You get feedback. This enables us to adapt our communication and actions accordingly. If people tell you, you should change, I should change. No matter how painful, because certain things are painful when people are telling us who we are. Feedback for growth. Constructive feedback from others and from ourselves is a valuable tool for personal development. Now, I can never give feedback if I know you are going to be upset. If I don't know who you are, I don't know you very well, I do not give feedback people that I don't know very well. Some people, we have Cho and Chise. He tells me this, Doc, you are like this. I said, and I always know about so, you know. But others, if I don't know you personally, at a very close range, I will not give feedback. But I don't hesitate to give feedback. I give feedback, especially something that has to do with growth, personal growth. Maybe you preach, I can add, no, next time you do like this. I tell you the perfect thing, even when I'm making the same mistakes I was telling you, the same mistake I was telling you not to do. So coming to terms with how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us provides specific insight into areas where we excel. Some years back, we had just gotten married, and at home, we had the Morris chair. You know, remember Morris chairs? How many know what Morris chairs are? You know? So, and this, we had a nail on a sofa, and it kept on pricking me. Then I was complaining to my wife. I said, this nail, I don't know, I've tried to remove. Then she just told me, you have not just taken it serious. I can't remember how exactly she put it. Because anything you set your mind to, you do it. I was not aware that I was like that. I can tell you that nail came out faster than it went in. Feedback, you receive feedback. It also provides insights in areas where we might need improvement, fostering continuous growth. It's easier to ask for feedback than to be taught. I was kept by a lady who was not my relative. She told me one thing, and we were just the two of us. Kenneth, it's better for you to do things on your own than to be taught. It's more painful to be taught to do something than when we never watched. You yourself, you just do it. That was a fundamental thing that she taught me. So it's better, you young people, there's no need for us to start telling you, you just see something, you start doing it. Communication. Asking about self-perception and other people's perception of us opens up channels of communications. It allows for honest conversation, clarifying intentions, addressing any misinterpretation that may exist. Building connections. So it helps us to build connections with others, to develop genuine relationships, aligning values. External perception can serve as a reality check, helping us to assess whether our actions align with our intended values and self-perception. Yeah, so that's the challenge that you see there. We need to align. Even at our workplaces, let's say some of us who are believers, do the people at our workplaces think we are believers? Because there are two places where your Christianity is tested. At home and at work. At home and at work. Okay, now let's quickly look at God's assessment of us. God's assessment of us. Only God truly knows us. Others know us partially. We know ourselves partially. but only God truly knows us. Psalm 139 verse 1 to 4, we read it last week. It says, "O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off." God knows even your thoughts. Even before you think them, He knows. "You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether." Your word, even before you say it, the word on your tongues, before you say it, God already knows. God knows. That's how much God knows us. We don't have to pretend when we go before God. I remember some years back, one young man, we were discipling some young men, and my wife asked this young man and says, yes, I don't know, are you praying for marriage? Or I don't know, it had to do with praying for marriage. He said, yeah, he was feeling shy to go to God and pray for a wife. You know, they are such kind of people. Jeremiah 17:10 says, "I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings." Sometimes I sit and I start thinking, what does the Lord think of me? What is it about me that I think I'm okay and the Lord thinks otherwise? I don't know if any of you do that. You know, is my behavior, is what I do, is my attitude towards people, is my generosity in line with what God would want me to be or to have? And it's very important to pray the prayer that David said, "Search me, O Lord. Search me and show me if there is iniquity in me." Remember last week we said it's very easy to see faults in others than in you. Very critical of others. We are normally very critical of others. Not knowing, just as critical as you may be with others, or you are with others, it's the same way. They are also as critical as you are. Some of us may think we are more intelligent than others. But others also think they are more intelligent than you. Of course, all of us are more intelligent than others in one area. No one is intelligent in all areas. And that's why we should learn not to force intelligence in children. I've accepted all my 4 children, and I notice their intelligence. Some may not be academically as intelligent. We may have to push a bit, but they're very intelligent in other areas. Hebrews 4 verse 13, "And there is no creature hidden from his sight, but all things are naked and open to the eyes of him to whom we must give an account." Just imagine we are going to give an account to somebody who has been filming us. He's been recording everything, including our thoughts, our words, everything we say, everything we do. He has recorded everything. He knows everything. And everything is bare before him. You may hide. You may pretend to be who you are. You are not. You may be the best hypocrite the world has known. Here at church, and you know, all of us at church, we are Christians. In fact, we are Christ-like here at church. If anything, but I have bad news for you. Because even the devil, when he comes to church, he is as good. The Bible calls him an angel of light. He is like an angel of light. He comes and pretends to be like an angel of light. Somebody said Hollywood has lied to people to think that the devil has horns and has the skin, peeling, falling off. That's not how the devil is. The devil comes like a gentleman, handsome young man, educated with speaking very good English, like a beautiful woman. The same woman that you have said, I would like to marry a woman like this. That's how the devil comes. The devil doesn't come. I mean, who would run to the devil the things are peeling? The skin is peeling. No. Luke 12, verse 6 to 7 says, "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 copper coins? And not one of them is forgotten before God. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows." God knows the number of your hair. Today you combed, and when you combed, some hairs fell off. He knows, he can tell you how many of the hairs fell off to the ground when you are combing. So some of us, he knows the number of our hair, the number of our beard, and the number of our, the mustache. He knows everything. Now, if God can know you to that detail, what is it that he can hide before you? Of course, this one is encouraging you that don't feel less valuable, because God takes care of the sparrows, the simple birds that we were killing with catapults as children and eating them. God knows them. He says that, "Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 copper coins? And not one of them is forgotten before God. But the very hairs of your head are numbered. Do not fear, therefore, you are of more value than many sparrows." Some of us may be going through a challenge, economic situation, emotional situation, different types of challenges. You don't think that God doesn't know what you're going through. He knows what you're going through, but he has allowed for a particular purpose. For a particular purpose. And what purpose? For your own good. Something good out of you will come out. He's building your character. Sometimes he does that so that you can come and help somebody else. But also he's allowing that, for you to go through that, specifically for his own glory, because ultimately whatever happens to us is to God's pleasure. It's for his own good. So he can even allow you to go through pain, terrible pain, if something good will come out for his own good pleasure. And that's a hard truth, because our God is sovereign. He owns everything. Everything is his. Your life, totally, everything, you yourself, is God's. He can do anything with your life. But the good thing is, okay, not that the other one is a bad thing, is free will. God has given us free will to choose to be used of God or not to be used of God. You can decide how much you want to be used of God. So now when we bring back the Johari window, we see that God is the one who knows the unknown area. He knows the unknown area. So we should write this one, known by God. Known by God. So because of that, because it's only God who knows all of us, we should give everyone a benefit of doubt. We should give everyone a benefit of doubt. What do I mean? Even those people that look spiritual, even as, I don't know how you think your pastor, how spiritual your pastor is, your elders are, whoever you think is spiritual, also give them a benefit of doubt. Why? You don't know them fully. What if they're just pretending? Or what if they've shown you their best side? So, you give them a benefit of doubt. So that the day they fall, you just say, "Oh, anyway, sorry. Let me also be careful." Because even pastors fall. Pastors fall. Last week, John General has been he's been trending. How many people heard the story of John General? John General? Okay, the rest of you are not on Facebook, but you are not on social media. And you don't have a close friend who is on social media. What has happened, we can't talk about it in church. And yet he's supposed to be a pastor. Yet we can't talk about what he did in church. So, even those that we think are carnal, we should give them a benefit of doubt. There are people you may think they are very unspiritual, but you don't know how spiritual. You don't know maybe before the eyes of God. God values them more than you. who shows off, especially us who are public figures. Sometimes you have churches where there are intercessors who make the pastor preach with fire and perform signs and wonders. And yet it's not because of his own anointing, but because of somebody else's prayer. These great men of God that we've heard about, Bonnke and many others, they had a lot of intercessors. And those intercessors are not even known. But in heaven, they are known. You might find them receiving the same reward as Bonnke, as Billy Graham, and many other great men and women of God. So it's important for us to give each other a benefit of doubt. Because we don't know ourselves fully. Because of this, the unknown area that only God knows. We only see the outside. We only see the image of the person. And partially we know part of the character, but not the total character. Knowing people, knowing the hearts of people is a divine prerogative. Only God knows the hearts of people. You remember Jesus, he was with these guys. When that woman came, a prostitute came, and she was crying. She was shedding tears on his feet, and she was wiping them with her hair. And the host was a Pharisee, and we also have Pharisaic tendencies. They were saying, this man, if he was really a man of God, if he was a Messiah, he should have known what sort of a woman is touching his feet. Then Jesus heard their thoughts and gave them a parable. So it's a prerogative of God to know people's thoughts. I always say, if we knew the thoughts of others, there would have been fights. There would have been, even in church. If you're hey, you grab the person. How can you think of me like that? There wouldn't have been peace. 1 Samuel 16 verse 7. This is the story of Samuel is told to go and anoint the next king, the next king, not the first king, the second king of Israel, selected by God. The first king was also selected by God, but to meet their human requirements. He picked a man, everyone said, yes, this deserves to be our president. The first king, Saul, the Bible says he was shorter, taller than everyone else in Israel. Not in a small group of people, the whole country. I was doing an assignment at one NGO, and these guys were cracking jokes. And this guy said, in my family, I am the shortest. And this guy is tall, Then he points to his friend, workmate, who is short, and said, but you in your family, you are the tallest. Then how short is the shortest in his family? He was making fun of him. So Saul was shorter, higher than everyone. So when he stood with other people, he was tall, handsome. And yet he had a very poor self-image. When they went to anoint him, he was hiding at the rubbish pit. He said, who am I? From a small tribe, from a small family, tribe of Benjamin, from a small family. He had such a low self-esteem. But when he became president, he became puffed up, proud. And don't we see, even, we've seen it in Zambia, how people come looking very low and very humble. And then when they become presidents or become ministers or become something else, how puffed up they become, So he asked the men. God does not tell us everything in advance. It's his prerogative. That's why you people want always the prophet to tell you what is going to happen in future. Good luck. He told the prophet, I said, this is a man who used to speak to God, used to hear his voice, where he started hearing the voice when he was young. God just told him, I have identified, selected somebody from the house of Jesse. Go and anoint him. He didn't tell him in advance. So the firstborn passed. He said he's not the one. Secondborn passed. He said he's not the one. In fact, I think when the firstborn passed, he looked like, yes, this one is king material. This is when God said, he says, I've rejected him. He's not the one. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees. Remember, how does man see? The Lord does not see as man. Okay? For the Lord does not, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Do you know why we are conned? We are easily conned by smart-looking people than by dirty-looking people. Person comes in a jacket, in a suit. There is just something about us that when you see somebody well-dressed, we immediately subconsciously trust them, that they are trustworthy. Even when you get a product, you look at a product, there are misspellings at the cover, you begin to doubt the quality of the product. That's us, human beings. We look on the outside. We judge people by the way they look. Somebody may be very spiritual, but because of the way they look, we think they are very carnal. Some people may be very carnal, but because of the way they portray themselves, we think that they are very spiritual. Us human beings. That means if you are going before human beings, mind how you look, because they will judge you by your appearance. Don't just say, no, God looks at the heart. Yes, we agree God looks at the heart, but we look at your outward appearance and will judge you by your appearance. If you go to the hospital and you are wearing the doctor's gown, we will think you are a doctor. If you are wearing the nurse's uniform, we will think you are a nurse. If you are wearing a very tight clothes, a mini here and a mini there, we might doubt you. No matter how spiritual you are, we may think you are the lad of the street. We look at the outward appearance and make judgment. So mind how you appear, even your workplaces. Some of you may not have been promoted because you don't look like managers. You look like casual workers. The managers want to promote those who look like them. So change how you appear. Why the condition of a heart is important, I'm closing. Why the condition of the heart, of man's heart, is important to God. God values the heart because it reflects the true nature of an individual. You young people, young women, young men who are not yet married, you are looking for a spouse, please be patient. Let it take as long as it can. Look for a right person. Pray, intercede to find a person with a good heart that my wife found in me. She waited patiently and prayed and fasted, with a friend. They were praying and interceding. I felt the prayers and I gravitated to her. Remember, a person, the only enduring thing about a person is their character. Their character is who that person is. You pay a heavy price by rushing. Particularly you young women today, you young women are panicking for marriage so much. I don't know. Anyway, the society has changed and you are even taking initiative. Let me tell you, a man, valanda ati mumutu wa munzako niziko lina. Mumutu wa muamuna niziko linangu. Maybe in America, you can't understand. A man does not like a woman who throws herself. I'm talking about a woman. A woman who throws herself on a man. Men want to move, not women white. Then in his mind he starts thinking, think she's desperate. I think, we'll talk when we deal with young people's issues. God values the heart because it reflects the true nature of an individual. Going beyond outward appearances, God assesses the inner character and spiritual sincerity. Spiritual sincerity. Again, some years back, as a student, I was conversing with this sister. We were not in the same class, we were in the same fellowship. And I was worried that I might change. And I was saying, I hope I won't change, and become a bad man. And then she assured me, Kenneth, I felt very nice. As a young, I think you won't change. You will just be good. And I think she was correct. I think I haven't changed. Maybe I've become better. Anyway, my wife can confirm, and probably the children. The heart is very important to God because it is considered the center of one's being, encompassing emotions, thoughts, and intentions. We may think we are doing the right thing. That's why it is important for God to examine us, even expressing devotion with words like, Lord, Lord. But on the last day, we may discover that God did not know us. Not everyone, Jesus said, who says, Lord, Lord, to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. Therefore, it's important for us to be sincere and obedient to God and have a strong relationship with Him, where our actions align with His will, ensuring a genuine connection and that extends beyond mere outward expressions. There is a danger of paying a heavy price through sacrifice when in actual fact we are doing it in vain. You can sacrifice as much as you can. You can even give as much as you can. In fact, the Bible tells us that, as Paul wrote, he says that, first he says, I presented to them the gospel. He went to Peter and the others. The gospel that I preach among the Gentiles. I wanted to be sure I was not running and had not been running my race in vain. Every time, even if you feel God has spoken to you, even if He spoke to you and you thought God spoke to you in an audible voice, go to other spiritual people and ask, this is what I heard. Could it be God? Paul was visited by Christ on the road to Damascus, but Jesus discipled him in Arabia, but he still went to the apostles and said, I want to know whether what I'm preaching is correct. The rest one says, though I speak with tongues of men and of angels, but have no love, I've become a sounding brass or is a clanging cymbal. I jumped verse 2, verse 3. This is 1 Corinthians 13, verse 1 and 3. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burnt, but have not love, it profits me nothing. What I'm saying by this is that no matter what sort of sacrifice you give, if your heart is not right before God, you are actually wasting your time. Even when there's a version that says, or it's the same version, it says, even when you give your body to be burned for God, and yet you don't have love, He says you've done it for nothing. So this is what I had wanted to do. You see the scriptures. These three characters. If you look at the character of the prodigal son, the elder brother to the prodigal son, from the human perspective, you might think that guy was a very good person. He was obedient. He never said anything. Then you might condemn the prodigal son who took his share and went and blew it up. The goodness with the prodigal son, he had a heart. He was open. He spoke his mind. When he needed his share, he didn't pretend that like his elder brother. He got it and blew it up. When he blew it up, he was humble enough to say, Father, I want just to be a servant. The brother got upset. The praying Pharisee in Luke 18, verse 11 to 12, when he went to church to pray, he went to brag before God. God, you know me. I give 10th of everything I have. I fast twice a week. I don't know when you last fasted. He was fasting twice a week. And I'm not like this chap next, But the publican, the person considered a sinner, the Bible says he could not even look up to heaven. He just says, forgive me, God, hear me, God, a sinner. And Jesus said, who did God hear? And I think the audience said, of course, the publican. Jesus said, the publican went justified. His sins were forgiven than the Pharisee. We also have Saul the king and David the king. So what he did was not as serious as what David did. He went. God told him to kill all the Amalekites. He kept few kings. He saved them. And also he kept fat animals. And those animals were kept for God himself. Now look at David. I am not saying those who do evil are better than those who don't. I'm just trying to show the hearts. That sometimes the way we appear may not necessarily be that we are the holy ones compared to others who may not appear as holy as we appear. David grabs somebody's wife, commits adultery, kills the husband for that. But the difference is their hearts, these kings. When Saul was asked what he had done, he even came and said, I have done everything. Went to Samuel, I have done everything, my Lord. Everything as the Lord commanded. Then Samuel said, what about those memes I can hear somewhere? Oh, no, those, we kept a few. Didn't God not tell you to kill everything? Oh, yes, yeah, it's the man. He changes. It's the man. He starts blaming. It's the man. He had 58 ways to justify, to reach a point where he said, forgive me, let me go with. Even when he realized he was doing something wrong, he still was worried about people. He grabbed the Samuel and says, let's go to church. Because if he shows up, Samuel shows up without the king, people would wonder something has gone wrong. So go with me. Samuel refused. He grabbed the robe. And as Samuel was trying to go, it was torn. And Samuel, it became a point of prophecy. As you have torn my robe, so the leadership has been torn from you and has been given to another. But when David, condemning the man, the proverbial man who stole a cow from this man who had only one calf, but him had many cows and killed it for his relative, for his visitor, when he said, thou art a man, 6 words, I have sinned against the Lord. There is the 6th, I think. That's what he did. I have sinned against the Lord. Brethren, we need to have hearts that are tender. Even when people injure you, even when people offend you, don't say, who do they think they are? The question is, who do you think you are yourself? Humbleness. Our hearts are very important. God looks at our hearts. And the Bible says the heart of man is desperate and wicked above all things. Who can know it? Only God knows. In other words, we know. Bemba translation. That umutima wa muntu wali walisha. The heart of man is so sick with sin. Who can know it? That's our hearts. So we need to examine ourselves. Shall we stand? We need to examine ourselves. And look at ourselves. Assess ourselves. Assess how you relate with others, how you deal with others, your relationship with God.